Today, the Utes tell us that after the Black Hawk War, Chief Black Hawk went on an apology tour. He visited all the Mormon towns and settlements in Utah and apologized on behalf of his people. The Utes now say the Mormons never reciprocated. The Mormons never visited the Indian villages and apologized for all the wrongs and deprivations the Mormons inflicted on the Indian tribes. The Utes made a gesture of peace and expected a gesture in return, and never got one. Of course, an apology now would be pointless, and all the men involved are long gone. The 20th century was a miserable time to be an American Indian in Utah. They were kicked off the land they once freely roamed, and they were relegated to the nethermost parts of the state to live in deep poverty and despair. They frequently complained of being robbed of their natural resources without just compensation. Several of their tribes were disenfranchised of federal recognition by legislation sponsored by Utah senators. Meanwhile, the people that have claimed ownership on the Utah land the Indians were kicked off of have achieved a vast, unimaginable wealth, which is a painful contrast to the deep poverty and declining numbers of the American Indians. The scriptures teach us that the city of Enoch there were no rich or poor among them. Everyone was equal. They were too good for this world, and the Lord took them off of this world. The Doctrine and Covenants also tells this church that if we are not equal in earthly things, we cannot be equal in heavenly things. That you may be equal in the bonds of heavenly things, yea, and earthly things also, for the obtaining of heavenly things. For if ye are not equal in earthly things, ye cannot be equal in obtaining heavenly things. For if you will that I give unto you a place in the celestial world, you must prepare yourselves by doing the things which I have commanded you, and required of you. Although it is a stark contrast to the vast wealth of the church compared to the poverty of the Utah Indian tribes throughout the 20th century. I am not saying it is unlawful or even wrong for this people to pursue their wealth in the things of this world. I am just pointing out that the Lord tells us that if we do, we cannot obtain a place in the celestial world. The Navajos tell us that before the building of the Glen Canyon Dam, the federal government went to the Navajos and told them that when Lake Powell fills, several Navajo communities will be flooded. The federal government negotiated with them and asked them what they wanted in return for losing their communities. They said they wanted 53% of the water, and they were led to believe they were going to get it. They signed the agreement. Many of the Navajo elders couldn't read. In the end, the Navajos say all they got was 53 acre-feet of water, and the lawyers that represented all the Navajos all got jobs working for the government. I wish to read to you the high regard which President Heber C. Kimball had for the Ute people during the Black Hawk War. The Utes are members of the Uto-Aztec language family, a family of languages which extends extensively through the western United States, from the Utes and Shoshone tribes of Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming, to the Aztec civilization in Mexico. There are over 1 million native Aztec speakers in Mexico. This account is from the life of Heber C. Kimball, written by his grandson, Orson F. Whitney. In the spring of 1866, his son, Colonel H.P. Kimball, was called into southern Utah at the head of a company of Minutemen to aid in subduing the Indians in the Black Hawk War. His son David P. was also called, but having just returned from a mission to England with his brother Charles, He was honorably released, and his younger brother Solomon sent in his stead. The evening before they started, Heber called their mother Vilate and her children into his room, and spent several hours with them, giving them much good counsel and explaining to them the relationship of the Lamanites as a branch of the house of Israel, with the latter-day work and the important part they were destined to play in this dispensation. He then blessed Heber and Solomon and promised them in the name of the Lord that they should not see an Indian while they were gone. This promise, though meant for their welfare, and it may be added, for the welfare of the Lamanites as well, was quite a disappointment to the two brothers, who were anxious not only to see the Indians, but to have a brush with them. Solomon had often heard of a fight which his brother William and others had had with the red men in Battle Creek Canyon some years before, in which William had the horn of his saddle punctured by a bullet while ascending a ravine, thus narrowly escaping being wounded or killed. Solomon had seen the saddle, which had romantic charm for him, and he now wanted to see the Indians. The remainder of the story we will give in his own words. We were gone 90 days and rode hundreds of miles, following the tracks of different bands of hostile Indians, and were close upon them a great many times. They were attacking settlements all around us, killing the settlers and driving off stock. At one time, after the Indians had made a raid on Round Valley, killing one man and running off 500 head of stock, Colonel Kimball left a part of his command at Thistle Valley to hold the fort at that place, while he went to intercept the Indians on the Sevier River. We had gone but a few hours when the Indians made a raid on the fort at Thistle Valley, running off all their horses, killing one of the party and wounding another. After our company returned home, we were drawn up in line in front of the courthouse, while President Young, my father, and others came down to see us. Father, looking at Heber and myself, whose clothing and countenances showed hard service, asked us if we had seen an Indian while we were gone. Our humiliating reply was, no. He laughed and said, "Didn't I tell you so?" and then added, "I would rather have them kill you than to have one of my sons shed their blood." The next story I would like to read to you is Translated Beings Laboring Among the Indians by Orson Pratt. Sunday, February 7th, 1875. There is one thing which I am about to read, which has not yet been fulfilled, and which we must fulfill before Zion is redeemed. I will read it. Behold, saith the Father, I will bring the fullness of my gospel from among them. And then I will remember my covenant, which I have made unto my people, O house of Israel. And I will bring my gospel unto them. Now then, we are here in this land. The house of Israel are scattered all around us, some in the Great Basin, some in Arizona, some in Idaho, some in Colorado, some in Montana, some in one place, some in another. I refer to the American Indians, all remnants of Joseph and belonging to the house of Israel. This people, the Latter-day Saints, before they can ever return to build up the waste places of Zion and receive their inheritances in Jackson County, Missouri, have got to exert themselves to bring the remnants of Joseph to a knowledge of the truth. We have not made any very great exertions in this direction unto the present time. The Lord has given us time, since he brought the fullness of the gospel from among the Gentiles, to lay a foundation, so that we could commence this missionary work in behalf of and among the remnants of Joseph. We have got the foundation laid. We have succeeded in building many cities, towns, villages, etc., for some 400 miles north and south. We have got our farms fenced and our water ditches dug, and we have begun to prosper in the land. So that now, I think, is the time for us to wake up our minds in relation to the scattered remnants of the house of Israel. Behold, then will I remember my covenant which I have made unto my people, O house of Israel, and I will bring my gospel unto them. It seems that the Lord is working among that people, and that he is determined this prophecy shall be fulfilled, whether we take it in hand or not. What do my ears hear? What do we all hear? Messengers are visiting these wild tribes in the basin, and in the region round about, hundreds of miles apart. These messengers come to them, and they speak in their own language, in great plainness, and tell them what to do. They tell them to repent of their sins and be baptized for the remission thereof. They tell them to cease roaming over the country and to cultivate the land. Tell them to go to the elders of this church and receive the ordinances under their hands. Who are these messengers? Read the Book of Mormon and you will find what God promised to do for the remnants of Joseph 1,400 years ago, about the time that most of them were becoming wicked and corrupt. The Lord said when their record should come forth in the latter days, that he would send his messengers to them. And among these messengers he mentioned 3 persons who lived some 1,800 years ago. 3 of the 12 who were chosen on this land. The Lord made a promise to these 3 that they should administer as holy messengers in the latter days, for and in behalf of the remnants of the house of Israel, which should fall into a low and degraded condition in consequence of the great wickedness and apostasy of their ancient fathers, that they should be instruments in his hands in bringing these remnants to the knowledge of the truth. We hear that these messengers have come, not in one instance alone, but in many instances. Already we have heard of some 1,400 Indians, and I do not know but more, who have been baptized. Ask them why they have come so many 100 miles to find the elders of the church, and they will reply, "Such a person came to us. He spoke in our language, instructed us, and told us what to do. And we have come in order to comply with his requirements." On July 15, 1855, Wilford Woodruff stated, "I can tell you the Lamanites of these mountains will yet be a shield to this people if we do right. And if we will not do our duty, our necks are ready for the halter or the knife. Yes, you will find that our necks will be ready for the knives of our enemies, if we do not look to these poor natives. I want to know now if the brethren can really and truly realize our true position with regard to the Lamanites, or do you consider them a poor, lost, sunken race of beings that are not worth saving? Do you ever read the Book of Mormon? If you do you believe and realize the truth of its sayings, and also what the Lord revealed to the prophet Joseph? We have them in the Book of the Doctrine and Covenants and in the history of Joseph Smith. Do you look them over? If you do, and if you lay them to heart as to the things of God, you will feel that it is actually our duty to do all we possibly can to benefit, enlighten, and save this people. Do you feel like killing off the Lamanites? I tell you, there is no man that will ever feel like killing them if he possesses the Spirit of the Lord. I let the Spirit of the Holy Gospel direct me. But until the light of the Holy Gospel shone upon me, I felt like other men. When the priesthood was restored and the light of truth burst upon my mind, I knew then that if it were not for the Israelites, the Gentiles might go to hell and be damned. The Lord would not take much pains with us anyhow. were it not for the promised seed. Instead of them being inferior to us in birthright, they are superior, and they stand first in many instances, with regard to the promises in particular. On February 7, 1875, Orson Pratt said, "What I wish to call your special attention to now, so far as these sayings are concerned, is this. The Latter-day Saints in these mountains can never have the privilege of going back to Jackson County and building that city, which is to be called the New Jerusalem, upon the spot that was appointed by revelation through the prophet Joseph, until quite a large portion of the remnants of Joseph go back with us. Now then, here is a work for us, and we have no need to pray the Father to return us to Jackson County until that work is done. We can pray to the Father in the name of Jesus to convert these Indian tribes around us and bring them to a knowledge of the truth, that they may fulfill the things contained in the Book of Mormon. And then, when we do return, taking them with us, they shall be instructed not only in relation to their fathers and the gospel contained in the record of their fathers, but also in the arts and sciences. And then, after receiving this information and instruction, we shall have the privilege of helping them to build the New Jerusalem. The Lord says they, the Gentiles, who believe in the Book of Mormon, shall assist my people, the remnant of Jacob, that they may build a city, which shall be called the New Jerusalem. Now, a great many without reading these things have flattered themselves that we are the ones who are going to do all this work. It is not so. We have got to be the helpers. We have got to be those who cooperate with the remnants of Joseph in accomplishing this great work. For the Lord will have respect unto them, because they are the blood of Israel, and the promises of their fathers extend to them. And they will have the privilege of building that city, according to the pattern that the Lord shall give. For when we have laid the foundation of that city, and have built a portion of it, and have built a temple therein, there is another work which we have got to do in connection with these remnants of Jacob, whom we shall assist in building the city. What is it? We have got to be sent forth as missionaries to all parts of this American continent. Not to the Gentiles, for their times will be fulfilled. But we must go to all those tribes that roam through the cold regions of the north, British America, to all the tribes that dwell in the territories of the United States. Also to those who are scattered through Mexico and Central and South America. And the object of our going will be to declare the principles of the gospel unto them, and bring them to a knowledge of the truth. Then shall they assist my people who are scattered on all the face of the land, and they may be gathered into the New Jerusalem. On July 15, 1855, Orson Pratt said, "We have forgotten who we are. We have forgotten in a measure what God has been doing with us as a people. We have forgotten his purposes that he has determined to accomplish in our day and generation. We, meaning the Mormons, have forgotten the forlorn condition of the sons of Joseph, the American Indians. We have forgotten the predictions of the holy prophets among their fathers, who so earnestly prayed to the Most High for themselves, and their children to the latest generation, whose prayers have been recorded in eternity and preserved in the archives of heaven, to be answered upon the head of their posterity in the last days. We have forgotten these things and are dwelling at ease in Zion, and neglecting the great redemption of Israel, the Lamanites. We have learned something. we are in possession of knowledge concerning these sons of the forest. Shall we therefore dwell at ease and allow the Indians to remain in ignorance of the great truths that we are in possession concerning them? If so, woe be to these people, or any other people that are entrusted with the sacred things committed to our charge, and who do not use them, for the redemption of those that are unacquainted with this knowledge. How do you think their fathers would feel to see their descendants, without knowledge of God and their ancestors, and then in turn see a people in their midst in possession of the sacred records and prophecies of their fathers, and yet that people so careless and so much at ease that they use scarcely any exertion to impart the heavenly knowledge to them? And if we do not accomplish this work of bringing this knowledge to the Israelites, we shall be accounted as salt that has lost its savor, and is therefore no longer good for anything but to be trodden under the feet of Israel, or our enemies. Whoso will not extend the hand of mercy to help the Indians will go down and lose their influence with God and all good men. The words of Joseph Smith the prophet. I wish to mention here that the title page to the Book of Mormon is a literal translation, taken from the very last leaf on the left-hand side of the collection of the Book of Plates, which contained the record which had been translated, the language of the whole running the same as all Hebrew writing in general. And that said title page is not by any means a modern composition, either of mine or of any other man, who has lived or does live in this generation. Therefore, in order to correct an error which generally exists concerning it, I give below that part of the title page of the English version of the Book of Mormon, which is a genuine and literal translation of the title page of the original Book of Mormon as recorded on the plates. The Book of Mormon, an account written by the hand of Mormon, upon plates taken from the plates of Nephi. Wherefore, it is an abridgment of the record of the people of Nephi, and also of the Lamanites, written to the Lamanites, who are a remnant of the house of Israel, and also to Jew and Gentile, written by way of commandment, and also by the spirit of prophecy and of revelation, written and sealed up and hid up unto the Lord, that they might not be destroyed, to come forth by the gift and power of God unto the interpretation thereof, sealed by the hand of Moroni, and hid up unto the Lord, to come forth in due time by way of the Gentile, the interpretation thereof by the gift of God. An abridgment taken from the book of Ether also, which is a record of the people of Jared, who were scattered at the time the Lord confounded the language of the people, when they were building a tower to get to heaven, which is to show unto the remnant of the house of Israel what great things the Lord has done for their fathers, and that they may know the covenants of the Lord, that they are not cast off forever, and also to the convincing of Jew and Gentile, that Jesus is the Christ, the eternal God, manifesting himself unto all nations. And now, if there are faults, they are the mistakes of men. Wherefore condemn not the things of God, that ye may be found spotless at the judgment seat of Christ.